An early taste of winter closes highways and schools in some of Canada's most weather-resilient regions.
It sucks.
Where the storm system is heading next. Also on this Thursday night, the White House wish list. U.S. officials make their demands to keep Canada's free trade deal alive. The response from the PM. Pipeline politics.
At the end of the day, the Prime Minister has to decide.
How the opposition leader says he would handle concerns from Indigenous leaders about a proposed pipeline. Plus, surf's up.
It's kind of gnarly, especially when those days it's like -15.
The Montrealer riding a wave of excitement to promote an unconventional sport.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Winnipeg is living up to its nickname. It was a rare snow day for students in Manitoba as that Alberta Clipper brought blizzard conditions across the prairies and into northern Ontario. As much as 50 centimeters of snow fell in some areas, with wind gusts of 90 kilometers an hour, closing highways and shutting schools. Heather Yourex-West reports on the storm's impact and why this wild weather system isn't over yet.
Even for a city as hardy as Winnipeg, Thursday morning was a misery. With 10 centimeters of snow overnight and winds gusting to 90 kilometers an hour, travel was so treacherous that all public schools closed for the first time since 2022. Those who did venture out didn't get far.
My daughter got her vehicle stuck going to work.
Many flights in and out of Winnipeg were canceled or delayed by the storm, while several highways surrounding the city were shut down, with police pleading for drivers to stay home.
Because, every accident, every stalled vehicle, everybody stuck in the snow, it does create a hazard and it takes away from frontline officers' ability to attend calls.
So we had this potent Alberta Clipper, which is basically a moisture-laden system that develops just off of the Rockies and then quickly clips through Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba.
With the storm system moving east, the western prairies spent Thursday digging out. Saskatchewan RCMP say there were 82 collisions reported overnight, with up to 18 centimeters of snow blanketing Saskatoon and as much as 13 centimeters in Regina.
It sucks. Oh yeah, it's supposed to snow again on Friday, I think, so I'll be looking forward to that.
The wind was crazy. That was the wildest part.
Southern Alberta saw wind gusts of 80 to 130 kilometers an hour when the storm hit Wednesday. By Thursday, though, the scene at this Calgary dog park was chilly but calm.
Well, the prairies may be through the worst of the blizzard conditions. It is about to get very cold, with most of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba set to plunge to -30 with the wind chill Friday. A nasty start to the winter season that doesn't officially begin until Sunday. Jeff?
Heather Yourex-West in chilly Calgary. Thank you, Heather. Turning to a political storm brewing over Canada-U.S. trade talks. President Donald Trump's point man on trade provided the clearest picture yet of what concessions the Americans are demanding of Canada to reach a trade deal in the new year. The U.S. Trade Representative says Canadians need to open their markets to more U.S. products and get rid of protectionist policies for industries such as alcohol and dairy. Mackenzie Gray reports on the demands and the Prime Minister's response.
You're not going to hold the documents up?
Oh, yeah.
Are you considering
Mark Carney and Doug Ford meeting in Ottawa, giving their best Donald Trump impression.
I'm not used to the reporters screaming at us while we're signing.
But a similar Oval Office signing over the current tariffs, now essentially ruled out.
My judgment is that that is now going to roll into the broader CUSMA negotiations. So we're unlikely, given the time horizons coming together, to have a sectoral agreement.
Sectors like steel, aluminum, and lumber now seemingly stuck with a 50% tariff for the foreseeable future, after a deal to reduce them was scuttled.
America's jobs and growth are at stake.
By Doug Ford's anti-tariff ad.
That was the best ad that's ever been run, 12.4 billion views.
The Prime Minister's face telling another story. Carney apologized to Trump over the ad, not enough to restart talks.
We're ready to sit down on the weekend, negotiate any weekend, any time, but we're also busy.
busy preparing for the renegotiation of the Canada-US-Mexico free trade deal in 2026, after the Americans outlined key demands, including changes to the online streaming and online news acts, ending bans on selling U.S. alcohol, easier access for American companies to get provincial contracts, and likely the most controversial, more access to Canada's dairy market, something Carney promised he wouldn't let happen during the election, which he reiterated today.
Not on the table. It's a negotiation. Each side has a set of issues. They put those issues on the table.
Carney putting tighter auto and aerospace ties on the table, but above all else, wanting certainty for the Canadian economy. Likely wishful thinking under this president.
Much of this success has been accomplished by tariffs. My favorite word, tariffs.
That attitude and the list of demands on both Canada and Mexico could make it challenging to get a free trade deal, Jeff, with the president who, since returning to the Oval Office, has only signed deals that have included a minimum tariff level.
Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa. Thanks, Mac. And during that meeting in Ottawa, the Prime Minister and Ontario's Premier also signed an agreement to fast-track approvals for the province's major infrastructure projects. According to the deal, any projects started by Ontario will only require environmental assessments from the province and will no longer need any further review by the federal government. That agreement should speed up the approval of Ontario's plan to build all-season roads to the so-called Ring of Fire, a mineral-rich region in the north that's been tapped for future mining projects.
In all cases, Ontario and the federal governments will maintain their standards and take their responsibilities for final approval decisions.
Today's announcement is transformational. Projects that required overlapping provincial and federal review will now have a one project, one process.
The agreement marks the latest effort by the Prime Minister to deliver on his promise to fast-track nation-building projects across Canada in a bid to bolster the economy. In Washington, the Trump-appointed board of the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts is sparking controversy after voting to rename the famed facility the Trump Kennedy Center. Democratic leaders are calling the move a disgrace and say it would require new legislation. And it isn't the only location where Trump is leaving his mark. These plaques are a new addition to the Presidential Walk of Fame inside the White House. According to his staff, Trump wrote many of the bios himself, including one for former President Biden that reads, "Sleepy Joe Biden was by far the worst president in American history," while Barack Obama is described as one of the most divisive political figures in American history, responsible for what Trump calls the Unaffordable Care Act and the Russia hoax. The president continued his condemnation of former President Biden during a primetime address last night, blaming his predecessor for the state of the U.S. economy. Unemployment and inflation are climbing in the U.S., driven in part by Trump's trade war and cuts to the federal service. The U.S. president is trying to dispel those concerns about the economy. Jackson Proskow reports on what the president said and whether Americans are listening.
Good evening, America. 11 months ago, I inherited a mess, and I'm fixing it.
Seeking redemption in prime time, President Donald Trump used his address to the nation to blame America's problems on his predecessor.
This is what the Biden administration allowed to happen to our country.
Almost 1 year into his term, Trump faces serious headwinds. Despite claiming to have single-handedly turned around the U.S. economy, grocery store prices continue to rise. And inflation, though slowing, remains stubbornly persistent.
Inflation has stopped. Wages are up. Prices are down. Our nation is strong.
The speech was meant to soothe the nerves of a nation rattled by economic uncertainty, recession fears, and growing unemployment. Trump's version of events doesn't align with what many are experiencing.
He's trying to tell people that things are good and getting better, and he inherited a mess. But that message falls on deaf ears. You just can't out-message the economy, especially when it doesn't coincide with what people are feeling.
Just 36% of Americans approve of how Trump is handling the economy. Trump's overall popularity is faltering as a result, down 9 points over the year to just 41%.
Well, it's a Trump economy now.
Trump's own advisors admit they can't play the blame game any longer. The president seems unconvinced of the need to change course.
We're poised for an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen.
With midterm elections looming in the year ahead, Trump's problems risk dragging down his party. His status as a lame duck could further risk his agenda.
If the president really wants to get some really strong achievements done, if he really wants to change the way the economy is heading, he's got to do it in the next few months.
For a president obsessed with ratings, there's no way to view the numbers as anything but terrible. Time is not on Trump's side, and for now, neither is the economy. The question becomes whether he can turn things around while his party is still in power. Jackson Proskow, Global News, Washington.
The U.S. has just approved its largest ever arms sale to Taiwan. The $11 billion arms package includes rocket systems, anti-tank missiles, and attack drones. The deal is the second under the current Trump administration, and it comes as China is ramping up military and diplomatic pressure against Taiwan. China wasted no time in criticizing the sale. Beijing considers Taiwan its own territory and says this deal jeopardizes peace and stability in the region. European leaders held high-stakes talks in Belgium today, trying to come to a consensus over funding for Ukraine.
Either money today or blood tomorrow.
That is Poland's prime minister setting the stakes. The European Commission has proposed using hundreds of billions of dollars in frozen Russian assets to help fund Ukraine's military and economy. That proposal, though, is causing divisions within the European bloc. Most of Russia's frozen assets are held in Belgium, and that country's prime minister is holding up the deal over concerns his nation could be left on the hook if Russia eventually succeeds in a legal fight to demand repayment.
We are working day and night with Belgium. If we take the reparations loan, the risk has to be shared by all of us.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned a deal must be reached before the new year, or Ukraine's drone-making capabilities will suffer as a result. American financial support for Ukraine has dried up under the Trump administration. The U.S. is planning to hold more peace talks with Russia in Miami this weekend. 7 people, including former NASCAR driver Greg Biffle, have been killed in a plane crash in North Carolina. This video captured the moments following the crash as emergency vehicles rushed to the wreckage. Authorities say the private jet crashed while landing at an airport, which serves several NASCAR teams and other Fortune 500 companies. Reports say Biffle and his immediate family were on board that plane. The cause of the crash is under investigation. ByteDance, the Chinese owner of TikTok, has now officially signed a deal to sell its American operations of the social media platform to a consortium of investors, ensuring that the app will continue operating in the U.S. 50% of the company will be operated by 3 managing investors, Oracle, Silver Lake, and MGX. ByteDance and its affiliate investors will own the other half. The deal is expected to close next month, allowing the app to survive a 2024 law that would have banned it from the U.S. An Ontario man finally clears his name. Coming up, how the accused murderer was exonerated after spending more than 2 decades behind bars. An Ontario man who spent more than 20 years behind bars for the murder of a Toronto girl has now had the charges against him withdrawn. Timothy Reese has long maintained his innocence. Our Sean O'Shea spoke with Reese after he learned he's finally free.
I'm relieved that, finally the murder conviction has been dropped against me and, I didn't kill Darla.
Timothy Reese spent 23 terrifying years in jail for murder.
All the time in prison, the fear every day, you don't know if somebody's gonna, stab you.
His conviction was set aside last month, and now the Peterborough man has found out he won't be tried a second time. Lawyer James Lockyer.
For me, Tim Reese will always be an innocent man.
Reese was found guilty in 1990 of second-degree murder in the death of 10-year-old Darla Thurrott of Toronto. But 20 years after he was jailed, the federal justice minister sent the case back to an appeal court. It found there was a miscarriage of justice because police didn't disclose a recorded conversation with investigators and another man.
I can only think of one other case where such compelling evidence was denied the defense. What amounted to, at the very least, a partial confession by the person I believe was Darla's real killer.
Reese gave his own confession to police while under the influence of alcohol. He later took back what he said.
Police just took total advantage of the situation to get what they wanted.
When we looked at it and looked at the so-called confession that he's supposed to have made, it immediately raised alarms.
Prosecutors say it's not in the public interest to retry the case, a relief for 62-year-old Reese.
It's a big weight off my back. I'm truly sorry that Darla was taken away, but I did not do it. It's nothing to do with me.
Sean O'Shea, Global News, Toronto.
Poilievre's pipeline promise still ahead. The Conservative leader's plan if he's elected Prime Minister. According to a new opinion poll, the vast majority of Canadians support building new pipelines once existing pipeline infrastructure is maxed out. The Ipsos poll found 83% of Canadians surveyed are in favor of expanding oil and gas exports to countries other than the U.S. Only 17% disagreed. 68% of those surveyed support the construction of a new pipeline to the BC coast. But a strong majority, 72%, think the capacity of existing pipelines should be increased before any new project gets built. That poll also found that more than half of Canadians are concerned that pipeline projects will increase greenhouse gas emissions. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says he not only supports the construction of a new pipeline to the BC coast, but will approve the project if elected, no matter who objects. The opposition leader's comments came in a year-end interview with Global National's Donna Friesen. Our David Aiken has a preview.
When it comes to building a new oil pipeline from Alberta to the BC coast, Pierre Poilievre vows to get it done.
Nobody has a veto, not under our Constitution.
Even over the objections of some First Nations communities.
And what if after those consultations, the answer is still no?
Well, the answer is given by the Prime Minister. And I'm running...
I'm saying if the Indigenous leaders say no.
That I will thank them for their input, and at the end of the day, the Prime Minister has to decide. And my decision, and I'm telling Canadians before the election so they can vote on it, is I will approve a pipeline.
In the last election, Poilievre did get more votes than any other Conservative leader in history, and yet his party lost, and he lost his own seat.
You've developed among people who didn't vote for you, certainly,
Right.
that you oppose for the sake of opposing.
And so what I have to do is show them who I'm fighting for and what I'm fighting for.
And he vows that the issue he focused on most in the 2025 election will be the same in the next one.
Affordability, affordability, affordability. That is the single biggest issue facing Canadians.
This is the fourth Christmas that Pierre Poilievre has been leader of the Conservative Party, but it's just the first one in which he has sat down with anchors of national newscasts like Donna for year-end interviews. And that's a clear sign that his communication strategy is changing to reach the new voters that he will need to beat the Liberals. Of course, that's if he survives his leadership review in January. Jeff.
David Aiken in Ottawa. Thanks, David. And you can watch Donna's full interview with Poilievre this Sunday on the West Block. In Quebec, Pablo Rodriguez spoke publicly one day after announcing his resignation as the leader of the Quebec Liberals, stepping down over a corruption scandal surrounding his party's leadership campaign.
Je crois encore que la politique peut faire ressortir.
The former federal cabinet minister did not admit to any wrongdoing, but acknowledged he'd become a major distraction. He says his departure stems from a sense of duty to his party. Rodriguez was under pressure to resign after Quebec police opened an investigation into allegations of vote buying while he was vying for party leadership earlier this year. He'd only been in the job for 6 months. Surf's up in Quebec. Up next, why this guy is riding the winter waves. When you think of surfing, you probably don't think Quebec, and you almost certainly don't think winter. But one brave soul is jumping into the chilly waters of the St. Lawrence River to surf Montreal's famous stationary waves. He's been documenting his surf sessions in an effort to promote the unconventional sport on the island of Montreal. Braden Jager-Haynes brings us his story.
In the pursuit of a surfer's endless summer, frigid temperatures won't get in the way for Montrealer William Messier.
Like today, it's kind of a warm day, you know, with the sun and everything. It's like -2 right now, so for me, it's not that cold, but for sure, when you see all those ice, for someone at home, it can be like very cold.
Surfing the St. Lawrence River for over a decade now, Messier is challenging himself, trying to tame Montreal's eternal waves for 19 days straight, no matter the weather, all while dodging massive chunks of ice. documenting every icy outing, Messier's social media posts are generating thousands of views.
Yeah, it's kind of gnarly, especially when those days it's like minus 15. Yeah, that's cold.
It goes without saying that this is extremely dangerous without the proper gear and experience. Water temperatures are hovering just above freezing, and hypothermia can settle in just a matter of moments.
For me, that's just like nature, you know, like I play with it, I know that it's dangerous, but at the same time, it's just like fun, you know.
Messier hopes his dramatic stunt will help elevate the niche sport of river surfing in Montreal.
For sure, it's a good way to promote the sports, and maybe if we have more surfer, we can have more waves and more events, you know, and become like a real surf city.
In 10, 20 years from now, we'll see that as a normal thing.
Advocates for better river access in the Montreal area say while surfing has grown in popularity, places to practice the sport are lacking.
It's a marvelous place for surfing, but there's no infrastructure at all.
Messier won't let the lack of infrastructure nor Old Man Winter keep him from catching his next wave. Braden Jagger-Haynes, Global News, Montreal.
Looks pretty cold. That is Global National for this Thursday night. I'm Jeff Semple. Tonight's Your Canada is a pair of festive gnomes in Minden, Ontario. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Have a great night.